Welcome to Extended Disc and today's webinar. We want to provide some background for those of you who may not have met us yet. Extended Disc is an international assessment company with operations in almost 50 countries and 250 team members. Extended Disc offers internationally validated assessments that can be tailored to clients' unique needs and preferences. If you'd like to learn more, contact us on our website or follow us along any of our social media outlets. As a reminder, this webinar will be recorded and all registrants will receive a link to the recording, and it will also be posted on our YouTube channel. Use the Q&A section to ask us any questions you may have. If we are unable to answer them during our live session, we'll reach out to all registrants with the response. Thanks for joining us, and now here's the host of today's webinar.
You're introducing yourself, Amy. Welcome to our 15-minute webinar. Hold on, just back. Oh, well, it's fine. So today we're going to be talking about, are you using the DISC reports enough? I think I would say many of you are very familiar with some of our core reports. So today, Amy and I just wanted to take a little bit of time and introduce you to kind of the broad range and scope of different types of extended DISC reports we have available. And also just kind of push yourself outside the box to think about how you can help your clients use DISC reports. Not DISC, but DISC data actually beyond the report itself. So Amy's going to kind of share with you probably what you are already familiar with.
So one of the things that I love about Extended Disc is just the variety of options that we have. And like Christina had mentioned, most of you are probably already familiar in using our individual assessment quite successfully, right? And there's a bunch of core reports, I would say. Our individual assessment, here we have sales professional leadership. Some people might even be using the team assessment as well. And these are usually our most popular reports that are used the most. And if these are what you're using, that's totally fine. There is a lot of success that you can have in using our core reports. You can build them into coaching and leadership programs, sales programs. It gives us the opportunity in using these reports to really focus in on practicing DISC and improving productivity and our success. That's the whole reason why we do DISC. We get asked a lot of times, though, what's next, right? What can I do after this? Or how do I keep DISC alive? And I think of the variety of options in our reports as really the answer to that question, right? Having the variety in the reports gives us opportunities and ways that if you want to embed this into a program more in depth beyond just the standard kind of introduction report, you have these options. And the best part, it's a template. So you're familiar with how it flows, how it looks, how to read and interpret the data, and present the data and guide your employees and participants to that interpretation of the data. So it's really a template that will help you have those conversations. And the best part is there's no additional questionnaire or reports that they need to take. You simply take the data that we have from the questionnaire and you can plug it into a different type of report, a different kind of aspect of DISC to use within your programs or however you might feel fit.
Yeah, one of the things I always say about the standard individual report is if you're not quite sure what report to use, you're never going to go wrong with the individual report. If you have for instance, a group of people, they aren't an intact team, use the individual report. If you have different job roles within your DISC sessions, maybe you have managers and you have salespeople, you have customer service, go with the individual report. You're not going to go wrong. Okay, so what Amy and I wanted to highlight today was just a couple different reports that you may or may not be aware of, but it's really in essence, to remind you of the different types of reports we have. We have an incredible variety of reports, and we're actually going to only touch upon two, but just know that there are over 200 reports we have, probably over 300 at this point. Do you want all 300? I hope not. You will never use them. Your clients don't need them. You're probably not going to use more than one or two, but it's good for you to know the scope of it. And we always say, if you don't know, or if you think, is this a report I should be using? The best thing to do is always ask us. So I personally have not even read all the reports that we have. I mean, they are essentially variations, like you heard Amy said, that are built on the individual template. However, this one I wanted to highlight, called the Remote Worker Self-Study Workbook, because obviously we are in a time where this has a lot of value. It's hitting at the critical moment. Believe it or not, we had actually already just published this self-study workbook before the pandemic and the lockdown hit. What's interesting is when I was thinking about going through a lot of reports, I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. We have another report. But this one really clicked with me. It made me think, gosh, I never really thought about actually how I work in the remote setting. Like, I didn't think about different processes, different schedules, different physical locations, because normally we just assume, wow, everyone's going to be happier working at home, right? But what this remote worker self-study workbook is, such a mouthful, but it's a great report, really focuses on is it looks at your client's natural style. So again, they don't have to take any additional questionnaire, and it presents the best processes, the best systems, the best kind of motivators and self-care. It really gets you to think about, how can I be more productive? How can I motivate myself in a remote worker setting? So that's definitely one that really kind of took off. It's very popular. And I highly recommend it, even for you guys as coaches. It's good just to run that report for yourself.
One thing that I would add, Christina, because I know we say it all the time, so we know, but even though there's no other questionnaire to take, there's also no additional charge then, because there's no additional questionnaire, right? At Extended Disc, we don't charge you to run a different type of report. We're using that same data. There's no charge to run that individual report. And as a follow-up to your session, send out a remote worker self-study workbook, right? Now that they've learned how to digest their own information and read the report, they'll be able to walk themselves through this workbook without any problem.
Yeah, and we're oftentimes as consultants looking for ways to kind of extend the relationship with our clients. And this is another way to do that.
Yep. So that leads us into the reinforcement reports. And so Christina was modest when she said we're talking about 2 reports, because the reinforcement reports, there's a whole bunch of them. So yes, we're talking about 2, but one of them has like 15 reports within it. So the reinforcement reports are simple, brief, concise reports, usually about 4 to 10 pages, and they tend to hone in on one behavioral aspect. So maybe decision-making, negotiating, listening, a behavioral action plan. It's a way that your participants can continue practicing DISC, applying DISC. It's always that DISC is something we do, right? We probably are already doing it. It's raising our awareness, and it's helping us to consistently practice it. So these reinforcement reports, I think, are great if you're creating a program. So multiple courses or modules within a program, maybe a leadership sales program, right? And you start off with DISC, kind of that foundational course. And as you continue working through the program, bring it back in, use these reinforcement reports, right? Maybe later on you're doing a module on decision-making or negotiating. You can run their DISC report so they see how their DISC style shows up in those behaviors. Again, no additional questionnaire, no additional charge to run any one of those reports. I think they can also be great ways that if you work with maybe an intact team, send these off to the manager, right? They can do them as follow-ups in their team meetings, ways to keep DISC alive, maybe aspects that they're talking about or need some additional coaching or help on. And as trainers and facilitators, I think it can also be a great lunch and learn. Always trying to think of just ways, again, keeping it alive, keeping people remembering to apply DISC. Invite them to a lunch and learn, have them bring their lunch, have it be an open conversation, right? And explore one of the many reinforcement reports that are out there.
And again, as always, in efforts to make your lives easier. So, again, you don't have to memorize all the reinforcement reports or any of the reports that we have. We've created a trainer guide to the reinforcement reports. So as you heard Amy said, use one, use all of them, use them on your time frame, just no additional assessment. That's the best way to do it.
And there's no particular order that you need to do them in, right? There is no order. It's whatever order is going to work best for you and your organization.
Yeah. So again, we just highlighted just 2 areas of new reports that we have. So always just, if you think, oh, could there be a report for this particular group or this particular individual or this session that I have, ask us. Because there's a chance that there is some type of match. And like I said, you are never going to go wrong with those core reports. One thing I would like to challenge you guys in terms of is if you have access to our admin dashboard, we call it the FINKS admin site, which again, there's no additional charge to you as the client. You have access to this immense amount of data where you can look at, your leadership can make better decisions. They have data to make it, because oftentimes, in organizations, we as managers, we as leadership, we're trying to develop our teams, we're trying to develop our individuals, but we don't necessarily have quantitative data to understand how to do it. How do we motivate our individuals? How do we motivate our teams? How do we look at our overperforming team, not over, there's no such thing as over, our underperforming teams and our teams that are just really kind of rocking it right now. So I just wanted to show you just a sample of some of the things that you can look at. So this here is, for those of you that are familiar, we have the DISC Diamond, but this is another way to look at data on the DISC Diamond. So this is one individual's flexibility zone. Also, it shows the dot representing their profile 2, their natural style. So this person is a D. You can see by the dot in the D quadrant. But also, this one is focused on being a team member. So not only does it show you where they're plotted on the diamond, but it gives you the description of their team member flexibility zone. So that's one way to use the data. And another way to use the data, if you want to just keep going, I just want to show. One of the great things about the FINKS dashboard is that you, our clients, actually teach us how to think outside the box and use the DISC information. So one of the things that we learned, or that some clients have been doing, is that they have been grouping their database, the individuals in their database together in a way that helps them look at the information much more succinctly. So the example I wanted to show you is, where you can think about, oh, we've had a lot of turnover. We've had, whatever, whether our companies merge, whatever happens. And so we as leadership decided to group our employees based on who has left the organization within the last 3 months. And how does it help us? One of the reasons cited was it helps us understand, are there certain styles or certain types that tend to leave our organization? And do we need a better job to motivate them or to retain them? So that's just one example of how a client decided to use the DISC data. And again, no reports are generated. You're strictly using the data itself to make better decisions. So it's supportive information. Somebody asked, how do we access the dashboard? As long as you are the account holder for the extended DISC account, or you have permission from the account holder, then you can access your FINKS dashboard. And you can reach out to us at customer service or info@extendeddisc.org to find out how to access it.
So I that's our time. It goes by fast. So we appreciate everybody attending today. Next webinar will be next week, Tuesday, June 15th. It's a Tuesday. So it will also be from 2 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time. And it's yeah or ugh, transitioning back to the office. So we'll be
Oh, yeah.
talking about, is it yeah or yay? Yeah.
It's yay. I forgot to change it here.
Yay or ugh? I knew I was going to say it wrong regardless. So your thoughts, right, and disc styles about how they might approach or think about this whole transition back into the office. So be sure to register with us and join us. But we appreciate you joining us today and hope you have a great afternoon.